want to introduce Johan Jörgensen, and he is the one who is running huge food tech events, and we are very glad to have him. So here we go. We can start taking seats. And we have also Asta Gerdauskaite. She is guilty for what we buy in ICA or don't buy.
No pressure.
And we have Rasa Vaičiūnienė from Euromonitor, and she is the most knowledgeable about Nordic region and what we buy. Maybe she knows better than we do. So this is very concrete, amazing panel, and I hope for very lively discussions. But before we start, I just once again want to say hi to Vilnius.
Hello, Vilnius.
Hello, Vilnius. Yay! Woohoo! Great. So without further ado, please start, and we will start from you, Jörgensen, and then Rasa will do another short presentation. Yep.
Very good. So thank you so much for having me here today to be able to talk about not so much going back to the soil as going forward into the future. Because we're talking about food. We're talking about the topic of smart food today and tomorrow. And to do this in the context of this conference is, I think, a lovely place to start. Mostly because I think many of you are not from the food sector, which actually will enable my message probably to go home better than if I had this talk in front of a, hall full of people from the current food value chain who tend to find my message slightly controversial and challenging and even sometimes dangerous. Now, smart food, what are we talking about? First of all, we need to wonder a bit, who is this guy standing in front of you? Well, I'm an old tech investor and entrepreneur, changing tracks into food tech about a dozen years ago. And today I run Sweden FoodTech, which is the leading think tank for the future of food in the Nordics. We like to say, at least. And what we're trying to do is to help people do three things. The first one is to reach insights about the future of food, novel insights. Where is food heading? The largest sector on the planet. The second one is, once people have come to insight, say for instance that Vattenfall realizes that they're a big part of the future food puzzle because it's all about energy. Then they might start to think, okay, so how do I connect then to all these people in the next gen food system who need energy? And then we say, yes, we know a few, we can help you with that. And the third one is that we every year run a big food tech conference called the Sweden FoodTech Big Meet. Thank you for referring to it as well, which next year will come back at the end of September together with the Stockholm Fairs, where we'll try to do the trick of releasing into the open one of the largest and most interesting innovation gatherings around food existing on the planet, both from the old and the new food sector. Now, but what's the fuss about? So this is all about the profound transformation of the largest system on planet Earth, which is food. And this transformation comes through strategic insights, innovation, policy, and investments. So let's dive into these. What are we talking about here? Well, when I'm out there in the world talking about food, I don't talk about Sweden, because Sweden is a tiny, relatively insignificant country on the edge of the world. I talk about the Nordics and the Baltics, because as the previous speakers also spoke about, this is a region. It's interconnected. It's been so for ages. And we're like 34 million people. We have the 12th highest GDP in the world combined. 11th, according to the 2024 numbers. We're in striking distance of Italy, Canada, and Brazil. We'll overtake them in not too far distant future and go into the G8. And this is why people think the Nordics are interesting, because it's a tightly connected region. It is heavy in tech and innovation. It's forward-leaning. The consumers are not traditional in any way. We jump on new trends. We try new stuff. We have progressive policymakers, at least in some countries. And we generally want to make the world a better place. And this is an extremely powerful story to be out there and selling to people, because people suddenly realize, so if I want to develop the next gen food system, which obviously is about all the things I just mentioned, then I need to be in the Nordics. That's where I want to be, because they are heavy hitters in this field. And I want to develop my stuff in the most heavy hitting place on earth. And then I can expand to the other countries out there. The Nordics is the place to go. Now, the Nordics is a pretty crappy place for food coming from the soil, though. Actually, it's only Lithuania that produces more than it consumes, i.e., is self-sufficient when it comes to food. And you can take a look at the bottom league there, Sweden and Norway, barely making half of what we eat. We usually say in Sweden that we produce two things. We produce booze and carrot cake. That's what we can sustain ourselves on, because we produce grain and carrots and sugar and some eggs, potatoes as well. But potatoes and grains are, of course, as we all know, alcohol in the making. So what is this about then, this smart food thing? It's about solving three of the greatest crises that we have on the planet right now, which is, of course, sustainability, where food has, produced its fair share of negative development over the years. It is the obesity epidemic. This is not me, by the way. I just want to stress this. How can we handle the fact that the entire planet is going obese and into diabetes, or just plain dying, like 3/4 of us will be, thanks to a chronic disease, thanks to our good food habits or our bad food habits? And then, of course, geopolitics upending everything we thought we believed about this world. So these things are currently driving the transformation of this food system that I think most of us believe is pretty stable. We think we know things about food because we have it in front of us on our plates every day a couple of times, and we relate to that. But to be honest, we don't know anything about the future of food beyond the fact that we need to transform quickly and massively in order to address these three mega issues. And believe me, we need to, and we will. These issues cannot go away without us changing the food system. Now, the positive side of this is, of course, that we live through the most interesting time in history of mankind. Because take a look at this population curve. It stretches from 1950, into some distant future. But the interesting part is, of course, that the curve rose like crazy and then suddenly, flattened out. It's actually decreasing slightly again, if we believe the United Nations and their population predictions. Now, here, we went from having this rather resilient traditional food system to a hyper-industrialized food system, because we could see the population curve exploding. And we needed to solve things rapidly. So we used all available knowledge and technologies of that time, the 1950s, the 1960s, to industrialize the shit out of food, which has led us to have 12 plants and 5 animals feeding 75% of all the calories on planet Earth today, resulting in these unintended consequences of a destroyed environment and personal health. So, if we can solve these two issues now, or these three issues, in the next few decades, we can, thanks to the flattening of the population curve, hold planet Earth forever. So if we fix food now, we've done it. We can start erecting statues of ourselves because we fixed the foundation of human life on planet Earth. This is why this is so bloody important, and why this will be so rewarding for those people participating in the transformation. Now, what is Sweden good for in this context? Let's take a look at the tech and VC market here in Sweden. I think it's appropriate to take a deep look at it, because you sometimes have to look at where the money is going in order to understand transformation. So we box above our weight when it comes to venture capital investments. Per capita, it's the highest in Europe, also in real numbers. And if you take a look at the numbers here, we're not so much early stage in Sweden. This means that we've started to move our money into the later stages, to the growth stages when it comes to sustainability. That's important too. This is not just testing things anymore. It's actually making them work on an industrial scale. 74%, 3/4 of all the VC investments in Sweden goes towards some sort of an impact investment. Other countries are coming too, but this is the clear leadership. Why would you like to go to Sweden? Because there's such a demand or an interest for impact-related solutions in this country. Even in the world of food, even though it has been slower to take off than I could have imagined when I started this journey. And let's take a look at what we are talking about here in sheer numbers. If you take a look at the plate value of food in the world, it's roughly 14 trillion US dollars. That's an awful lot of money. But as the Rockefeller Foundation in the US could state the other year, we pay roughly a third of the price of food when we buy it. Roughly as much as we pay for the plate, we pay for environmental destruction and for negative health consequences. So food is really 3 times as expensive. And then we haven't even started to realize the new opportunities that come with food. What can we use food for? Can we increase grades in schools and thereby increase our tax revenues over the period of a lifetime? Can we improve productivity at the consultancy companies, but just feeding people better? Absolutely. We can do all of that and much, much more if we start to looking at food, not because it's on the plate, because of the values it creates before and after the plate. Now, Sweden has challenges. And let's take a look at it. We lack a national innovation strategy for food. You seem to have one in Lithuania. And it's so refreshing to having a minister coming here and talking about food tech and actually putting numbers to it. Those are words we've never heard from the mouths of a Swedish governmental representative. Here it's very much the old way of doing food. More cows, larger fields, bigger tractors, more of the old stuff, not so much of the new. The Swedish government uses food as a culture war thing, rather than as realizing the opportunities and trying to grasp them. This means that the transition from the old food system to something new is basically today a task for regions and municipalities, because those need to really adhere to the needs of their constituents, their citizens. They take a far greater responsibility today than what Sweden does on a national level. But the private sector, on the other hand, is really pushing this. It's pushing this from so many angles at the same time. For how can I valorize the side streams of my industrial activities with the help of micro organisms? That would be a typical question today at the big industrial company. How can I build new growing environments for food that is not based on the field, but is based perhaps on the readily available cheap electricity or heat from other industries out there? Now, and the public, I must say, is also on the private sector's side. We're a change-willing community here in Sweden. I think we will hear more about that in a minute or two, what Swedes really do and think when they talk about food. And we really want to contribute to this transformation. But this is not about Sweden. Sweden is a great test market, one of the best test markets in the world. And the vision that is appropriate for the Nordics is to use the various parts of the Nordics for what they're good for. Because that's what smart food is. So if we can have the insights about today's problems and today's opportunities in the world of food, and not be clouded in our minds by the current food value chain, because that's a pretty recent innovation, to be honest. If we can use those strengths where those exist and combine them beyond national borders, for instance, in the terms of having a biotechnology or bioeconomy strategy, great thing to have in Lithuania. Please use the wider markets that you have on your doorstep in order to push these innovations, because we want them. Even though the Minister for Agriculture in Sweden doesn't want them, doesn't mean that the Swedish public doesn't want them. And of course, if we are a region of eight tightly connected nations, of course we should try and cooperate more around joint insights on how we together can shift the largest market in the world, which is food, because the planet out there screams for solutions. And selling solutions is far more profitable and impactful than selling pork or grains to other people out there. Now, this of course requires us to build new networks and bridges, not just the old roads that the current folks travel on, but the new roads with their new rules, so to say, and where the new people travel around this joint topic that we have. And I think what you've done today is brilliant, because you're trying to get people together to build these types of bridges. And what I personally can hope comes out of this session today is, of course, that we can start building bridges between Sweden and Lithuania when it comes to the future of food. So that would be my great hope and request to all of you. Start thinking about food in new ways, and let's act on it together. Thank you very much. Not about me, Rasa. Here's your clicker now.
Yep. Yeah, so my name is Rasa. I work for Euromonitor International. I now work with food and nutrition research, working with Nordic markets, Baltics, and now I got some exotic Middle Asia markets. But for now, let's focus on the consumers in Sweden and in Europe, a bit more closer to home. So what are they thinking? So what are they concerned about? So one of the things that has come up in the recent polls that we do annually is that the Swedish buyers are very concerned with the prices. Even though we see in the numbers that inflation was not as high in Sweden compared to Lithuania, the inflation is prolonged and it's taking a bit more time, so the concerns are going up. Consumers see that there is more international food. They're willing to try the cultures, at least they say they do. They're willing to try new products. They want to make a difference with their actions in the world, and also they do extensive research. And that's one thing that I always find unique in the Swedish research, is that how much scrutiny do Swedish consumers have for the products that they buy. So let's go through the topics. So one of them, the big topic, the hot topic, is budgeting. And I think it's very common topic for Baltics too. Swedes say that they're willing to pay more to save money. So that means buying in bulk, searching for promotion, traveling somewhere to buy the same quality that they're used to, but for a lower price. This is very common topic for Lithuania, and every buyer in Lithuania is basically a researcher of price. They travel to Poland to buy food when the VAT is low. They travel for alcohol. I think you can relate to that in Sweden. And these are the commonalities. It's just there are some differences. Whereas in Sweden, the private label is quite developed and people already are confident in the product. In Baltics, overall, private label is still growing, and this recent inflation has pushed private label a bit more. So we're getting there in common ground. One of the things that Swedes are very eager to use is loyalty cards to save money, to get some kind of discounts. They're also eager to use it for rewards. They're quite high up in Europe. Poles are a bit higher. They're the number one in Europe, whereas Danes are the opposite, even though they're the neighbors of Swedes, and they're not so concerned about saving, or at least using loyalty cards when it comes to saving money. Another thing, back to the topic that Johan discussed, is nutrition. So we see a lot of scrutiny from Swedish consumers, and nutrition is very important. How Swedes are different to Europe is that they place a lot of importance on weight management. So it's their personal health, maybe their looks, compared to Europe. In Europe, it's more concerned about the overall health, how they feel, and also what kind of ingredients they're using to produce that food. So they read the labels quite heavily compared to Sweden, even though these are the top 3 reasons that they look in food and why they read the labels. They're still a bit different to Europe when it comes to ranking. So one of the most trusted claim in food is natural in Sweden, and it's the top claim for them. It places a lot of trust. It's similar in Europe. And the categories that show the prevalence of claim natural the highest is dairy and snacks. Dairy, because both in Sweden and in Baltics, we want to see our dairy products as close to the village product that you can get. It doesn't have anything artificial. It's not overly processed. With snacks, it's kind of the opposite. Snacks, we're used to that. They're over-processed. They have a plethora of ingredients that they read more like a chemical compound rather than food. So Swedes are looking also here for snacks that are more natural and closer to their original form. It preferably should be organic, chemical-free, and then as least as possible of artificial ingredients. Another thing that is unique to Sweden is that they look for nutrition even when snacking. Even though we often associate snacking with some unhealthy habits, Swedes, they try to incorporate their snacks into their everyday diet. And this is quite a staggering difference compared to European counterparts, where it's like double the respondents are saying that they're looking for more nutritious choices. Some of the claims that we see quite predominant in snacks in Europe, they're quite common with Sweden, which is focused on diet. So it's gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian. Those are the things that are coming up quite predominantly, and we see that the same in Sweden. Where Sweden stands out is the focus on sugar or sugar reduction. So I think it goes back to the weight management, because sugar is one of those things that causes, of course, weight gain, diabetes, other health issues, and that's one of the focuses that Sweden has. Sustainability. This is the part that, when I was going through the consumer insights, really shocked me. Sweden always looks as the pillar of sustainability, the place that a lot of sustainable initiatives comes from. But then Sweden ranks last when it comes to climate change and positive action to the environment when they have to voice their agreement. But here's the thing. You may say one thing and not be very overly excited, but you act very differently. And that is true for Sweden. They rank #1 to managing food waste. They want to reduce the food waste. They recycle as much as possible. And only 1% of respondents say that they're not doing anything for the environment, to do any green action in every day. So 1%, I think that's very low. Maybe they just misunderstood the question. Another thing that goes back to sustainability and self-sufficiency is being local. Swedes love food that is locally sourced, and they're willing to pay more. They're looking for nutritional properties, for sustainability. And it stands out also compared to Europe. While percentages may be a bit higher for Europe, but we always look at the ranking. So let's say for Europe, recyclability is the green label they trust the most, whereas for Sweden, it's being local. So how does that look for local and importing goods from Baltics? But it's always good to find common ground or to relate to some topic that is common for everything, because Swedes often don't associate local just with their country. They trust their neighbors. For now, it's just Norway, Finland, and Denmark, but maybe we can expand that. So we need to build trust that we can deliver the same quality, that it can be consistent throughout. So how does the food future look like? So it's a circle of 3 cogs, I would say. One is supply, that involves everything from farms to supplying of ingredients, that is focused on sustainability, finding new ways of working their mind to adapting to the climate change, adapting to the growing protectionism, so going for the self-sufficiency and working with innovation. So both involving big data information to grow better crops in better ways. We have an example in Lithuania where we have one of the biggest vertical farms that uses data to better produce their greens. In the production part, the focus in manufacturing should be on the food reduction. And I always love this example of Fazer in Finland, where they use oats from start to finish. If something is unused, then they burn it for energy, and it's used up in a good way. Fermentation, because we know that the food resources are finite, and we need to find new ways how to produce most nutritious components. So fermentation is doing a lot of things that can help improve nutrition from using less resources in food. Improving functionality. So this is kind of a crossover with consumer health. So kind of almost like supplements, but still food, adding collagen, hyaluronic acid, everything. Then in production, we see the rise of cell culture, which is still a very controversial topic. But as we see reports coming out, this is one of the ways to support population growth and feed it substantially. When it comes to consumption and the consumer side, we see that there is a rise in meat reduction, whether it's for health, whether it's for green movement. There is a focus on hyperlocal because this is also seen as a sustainability factor, that you're not importing everything from abroad, from overseas, from the other side of the world, and supporting your own community. There is still a need for indulgence because we like to have fun. And the last one that I find very interesting is those health fats. Some stay very shortly, like the cucumber salad that goes on TikTok, or some are changing completely and making you rethink how you see food, which is one that is coming now from the Ozempic type drugs, weight loss drugs, that you need to adjust how you produce food because it needs to fit the diets of the people who are users of drugs. So, in short.
That's it. Thank you very much. Yes, a big round of applause for that. I think now we understand a bit more about the what Swedes do. let's come back up on stage, please, Rasa, and let's add Asta as well here. Asta, who are you, by the way? I think you need to introduce yourself to the audience.
So I'm the guilty one. What are you buying today at the ICA store? So many years I've been on the other side of the Baltic Sea. I've been working in Rimi Baltic company, and a few years ago, 4 years ago, I moved here to Sweden, because Rimi Baltic belongs to ICA Gruppen, and ICA Gruppen is one of the well-known retailers, the biggest retailer, 50% of Swedish market, 5 million of loyal customers. And my area of specialization always been about assortment, about buying, about negotiations, about meeting suppliers, and having the best deals for customers.
That means that you're behind all these ICA's own goods or their own products out there.
Yes, kind of.
Or is, what's the difference between those in the Baltics and here in Sweden, for instance? If there is a difference, I mean, like mostly perhaps the availability of them.
No, there are differences. There are differences definitely, and what I would say that Swedish market is quite conservative market. They used to their hard bread or specific cheese, and they are eating it generations to generation. While in the Baltics, we are so curious. Oh, it's a new brand, new cheese, new this, new development, and people are so curious. Customers are so curious to try, and if the product is driven by promotion, some more attractive price and so on, it flies.
This is so interesting because when I'm out there in the world, Sweden is always the prime example of progressive market with dynamic consumers, especially if we compare it to Germany or France or Spain or those places. And now you're telling me that the Baltics is even more.
I'm sure, and even Swedes. And my company, I'm talking here from my experience and from ICA's perspective. I cannot talk or make absolutely for everyone. But yes, in the Baltics, we are more progressive.
But this means that we have another reason then to go out and sell the Nordic Baltic 8 here to the world,
Yes.
because then you have a bunch of markets that perhaps are, different from the rest of the world or on the edge, but in different ways, perhaps. So you can come and try your products where those may fit.
Yes. But at the same time, we as a retailer, we are facing a problem where we say that our shelves are not,
Made of rubber.
made of rubber, if to translate Lithuanian, made of rubber. We have to limit, we have to calculate our costs. And when you sometimes see that less assortment generating higher turnover and higher value and less work you put behind, so assortment optimization is one of the, unfortunately, KPIs. So we need to be very conscious what we are choosing, how we are choosing, what customer preferences it will respond, and what a message we are sending to the market.
Let's stay with this one for just a second here, because you spoke about things being locally sourced has a higher intrinsic value here to the Nordic. I suppose it's the same in the Baltics, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's especially goes for those basic goods like dairy, meat.
Fruits and veg, maybe.
Yes,
Seasonal,
of course, seasonal. But there is this local, especially I think for Lithuanians, dairy is the key factor, but that's true for Sweden too. And to enter a market, you have to basically lower the price to enter, whether it's entering Lithuania or entering Sweden, because I saw an example with Odligut from Finland trying to enter with their product. They were cheaper in Sweden than across the border in the origin state. So it's
like when I was looking at your presentation, and when you said you had a topic or highlight about the prices, I wanted like immediately to reflect, because I myself directly all the time in a price discussions and in a different negotiations and so on. So I don't think that Swede will run for cheaper price. I mean, we have an understanding that, or we have a perception that Swedes are not doing short-term business just because of the price. They think that the price
reflects quality.
reflects not
Yeah.
only quality, but also what is behind the product.
Mhm.
Social responsibility, environmental impact, the quality, how long the product lasts, how big it is, and so on and so on. So there are a lot of factors behind where they are ready to pay, and you don't need even to promote.
Yeah, and that's the major thing that is shifting. Doesn't mean that the Swede will go down a quality. They will want to buy the same
Yeah.
Arla milk. Maybe they will just shop around and will be disloyal to ICA and go to Coop or to Willys.
I'm wondering personally. One of the things I've started to wonder over or started to work like in the last few years is that I've gone from big brands to smaller brands. So I want to have my little local, dairy company providing my milk, for instance. And to be honest, I'm not so sure I bother too much if it is from Sweden, as long as it is from someone who's actually, a small one struggling or producing even better quality than the big ones are doing. What do you think would, and I don't think I'm alone in that approach, by the way, witnessed also by a lot of these smaller brands popping up now in the market. What would you think? Would it be possible to sell these local ones to Sweden as being local from the Nordic Baltics? Or is there still some sort of a distance between the Nordics and the Baltics? I would never in my mind react to something coming from Finland or Denmark. That's, to me, it's a home market.
I think
Yes,
one
you
of
go.
the factors is when we are talking local, you also have to think familiar. So ingredients that we use and that they are cultural to you should be kind of replicated. So if we would go something like passion fruit for Sweden, maybe it doesn't sound local. But if we say rye, oats, something from dairy related, this is already, we're speaking the same language. So you can go local, but look at the flavor profile and the traditions maybe. So it kind of, you then find common ground that is local, but in a broader sense.
Yeah, so we can broaden the entire region. I think we probably should do that in order just to become more resilient also as a region. And one of the things that I also reacted to during the day, which I wasn't properly prepped for, Meda. I wasn't properly prepped for the fact that Lithuania was so advanced when it came to strategic thinking about biotech and the bioeconomy. I would like to know a bit more about that. What can Lithuania bring to Sweden that we didn't know existed? I haven't prepped you for this question either. So.
Neringa wants to add something.
Yeah. You'd like to add? I'd love to hear. I think there's a microphone there in the middle. I don't know if that is working or not.
Just want to add, like 1.5 weeks ago, we had Startup Fair, major startup event. And one of the sessions and side events was tasting innovative food. And fortunately, room didn't fit the crowd. How many people were interested to taste tacos, which contained reproduced leftovers from beer, salyklas, I don't know how to translate it into English.
Malt.
Yeah.
And the other company suggested to taste chips which were enriched with mushrooms, spermicides. This is material which is also in wheat and in grain and in mushrooms, and also oats, also containing these alternative proteins. So alternative proteins is becoming a thing, and currently we have 33 startups working on innovative food. And some of these foods are already in supermarket.
And I also understood that you've signed up a deal with the Netherlands in order to work closely with them in developing the next gen foods.
Yes, so we have cooperation on alternative foods and exploring possibilities for alternative proteins. Because one of the reasons, of course, is exploring new industries, new possibilities, new markets, new innovative products. And but the major idea behind, of course, is reduce shed. And agriculture sector is producing biggest amounts, one of the biggest amounts of CO2. So we are looking forward in introducing more novelties into food sector and providing more alternative proteins, products with alternative proteins, which are in many cases giving new possibilities for aging society, actually.
That's
lovely.
what we should bring here, because then we will be exceptional, then we will be unique, then we will be interested. Because we as a retailers, for example, we are all the time asking, so coming supplier or company with a great ketchup. And I'm asking, why do I need this ketchup with just a different label? Why I need to have 5 or 10 brands on a shelf? But if I'm coming with the ketchup which is, I don't know, plant-based insect spice, you know, I'm just now. So that would be, wow, this attracts new customer groups. It creates new demands. Retailer will have a great story to society, to consumers. Together, the cooperation, they can drive the market nuts.
Absolutely. And this is so good. So we have you now at ICA buying all these
Yes.
things. Lithuania, take note. You know who to contact with all the new protein stuff, and then you will just fix it for us, right?
Yes.
That's
Oh,
very good. But
definitely.
you agree that we go this route and pour in innovations from Lithuania into Sweden?
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things that we have, as Neringa mentioned, is not just that there is food tech, we have agro that is developed. We also have a lot of scientists that work in the biochem area that can help out. It just depends on the support, because we also have to think not just 5 years ahead.
No, it's a transformation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So take decades.
So one of the things that we in Lithuania not only have startups that are in data in the IT sector, we also have very strong companies and very strong researchers that are in biochem area.
I think this is super relevant because in the tech sector, back in the days when I was part of that, having people jumping over the Baltics from every direction, that wasn't the big thing. Everyone was connected, irrespective of where you were, right? And when suddenly food borders have been raised again, it's really, really hard to find that common ground where you can connect. I think this is a great example of actually connecting here.
It's a great example. Also, I think one thing, at least what I see in a business, that sometimes we are speaking on a different dimensions or from the different perspectives. In Sweden, for Swedish business, if you want to come, for them it's extremely important, like sustainability, all the topics, locality, fossil-free transportation, food waste, and so on and so on. And they made a lot of things from the different regulations, and this is the thing, let's say, a company integrated in each step or each kind of step of the company. In Lithuania, we still talking about product itself. Oh, buy a product to do this and that. And for Sweden, it's like, okay, but I care about sustainability. My consumers are very educated to read the label. I care about traceability. I want a social responsibility. So how we should sell Lithuanians, how we should sell us here in Sweden is through the same topics what are important to Swedes.
This is good because this is also touching upon a dear topic of mine, which is data, having data and the
Exactly.
understanding of what's in the product, nutrition-wise or sustainability-wise. And it's really good to have countries that are used to data coming up with these solutions. I work a lot with the south of Italy, trying to help them innovate a bit more in food. And if you mention data to them, there's like, data? What is that?
No, but the same,
it's like-
the same. I was like in the Baltics when I was there since many years. We've been saying, "Oh, it is a great product. I have a feeling." Here, there's like analyzing. This is this and this data. I was like, guys, are you crazy? Just try, get going. You see how the customers respond, and then take a decision. So it is very important. And if we are not talking about data R&D, science-based innovations through sustainability, we are not.
I think we're done, right? And that's also why we need AI. So that was a brilliant panel
Exactly.
actually to have preceding
Exactly.
ours. When it comes to what can Sweden teach Lithuania then? Is there anything we can bring?
Yeah, so I think like going on the same topic, that's one of the things that Lithuanian companies should learn is talk about the practices. Because sometimes they actually do those sustainable things, but they don't even think about it. They do not communicate to the consumer or to their partners. And it's like, it would be easy to say that our cows come within like 30-kilometer range.
And they're happy cows.
They're happy cows. They graze on the hills.
All
and-
cows are happy if you ask the market.
Yeah, and but you should communicate that. For us,
Exactly.
it's seen like, oh, it's
It's
Monday.
natural, right?
It's
Yeah,
natural.
of course, an
natural, but
obvious
I
thing,
agree.
right?
We don't know how to promote ourselves. I don't know from where it came, maybe historically, that we are so kind of, I will not be
But it
kind of.
goes down to overall work culture. I remember when my husband moved to a Swedish company, one of the things that he found very different with the Swedes is that the Swede, when they do something, they're proud of it and they say about that. A Lithuanian, they do 3 major things and it's like, oh, it's everyday job. And they never promote themselves. And I think that's one of the things that Lithuanians should learn to do more, to be proud of what they do, even though they think I achieved it easily. Maybe I used AI.
Yeah.
But you thought of the idea of using AI.
You know what I think of when I hear you speaking right now? I think of Finland. Because that's always been the case when we go over to Finland. It was like, oh, what amazing technology, but they suck at selling it. So that's why there is a beautiful connection between Sweden and Finland, because we can hustle their technology. We're worse at tech than the Finns are. But it seems to me like you guys are as good at tech as the Finns are, perhaps even better. And then we can sell that to the world.
There are commonalities, I would say, and I think a lot of like the startup culture, this kind of, there are similarities with Finland. There are some dissimilarities. Finland has a lot of support from the government in, of course, financial aid. We are still moving there to that direction. But then again, we have very short history of being independent.
No, but that's honestly, there's no support for that in Sweden either. So perhaps we should jointly go to the EU instead, and source all their ill-gotten gains for our benefits here in the Nordics. I think there is a lot to be said for the potential relationships of the future, given what we have been talking about so far. But to let the audience in, is there any questions from the audience? Everything is clear. Oh, there are a couple of hands here.
Oh.
Let's bring the microphones to the gentlemen's. I think you were first up there.
Thank you very much. Great presentation so far. Made me a little hungry. So my question is not so much about what people buy, right, and the differences, but in the buying behavior itself, the way people buy. Do you see the change and trend in that, especially after the COVID?
That's for you.
Yeah, we do see, and historically, let's say Sweden was basically two major retailers. We see an emergence of discounters that was not a big thing here. In Lithuania, it's actually quite similar. We actually discontinued some discounters for a few years. And now this is probably the most booming sector, most dynamic, because overall in Europe, discounters have shifted quite a lot from this very German style, plain looking warehouse to a store that is similar to a supermarket but offers basic assortment, but it looks a bit nicer. Just putting on a new dress.
New dress, but still cheap, right?
Well,
So, I think you raised your hand, right? Yep.
Yeah, so I basically have a question regarding the behavior of a client when it comes to launching of new products. For example, plant-based beef. That is a highly tech product, a lot of risk investments, but somewhere it has to be commercialized. So I would like to hear your interpretations, like you from the tech sector. What do you think about the future of that type of proteins? And how would you, from ICA Group coming in as a commercial actor, seeing how that could be brought into the daily basis of the Swedish society, since I'm sure there are Lithuanian companies trying to do the same thing and using mushroom spores and such to develop this. But we are still, walking back to our pork, going back to our beef, having our sausages. There's a quite huge leap to go into something that is grown in a laboratory for your Sunday roast.
If it's a practical question, I suggest you talk to Jen on your right-hand side, because that's the stuff she does on a daily basis. But to give you the answer, I think that this is also why the future of food is policy. Because today we have in Europe alone 60 billion euros going into the common agricultural policy, right? In the entire world, I think we have some 700 or 800 billion US dollars going into negative subsidies into ag. And I mean, beef should be 3 to 5 times as expensive if we factored in all the costs of beef. So this is not a level playing field. So I think that's where we probably need to start from the policy perspective, because until we fix the fact that we only pay price of a third of the price of a product today in food, we don't have a market economy. We cannot use those types of methods in order to shift the food systems. We need to fix that. That's policy. And that's going to be European policy. And that also needs people to be champions of such a European policy. Why don't you go to the EU from Lithuania and fix this? Swedes won't. So we need someone braver. No, it's not the last question. No, it's not the last question. We have one up there first, and then you can have the last question.
Do you have any plan to support food tech startups at ICA? For example, small companies that produce foods to collaborate with you for promoting their products at ICA?
Yes, I am very proud and to answer yes to your question, because ICA really cooperates and supports local farmers, local small companies to and thinking behind not only about commercial deal, but also thinking about Sweden itself, how we secure that the farming business will be more sustainable, and we still have farmers in 5-10 years. So, and answering your question and fulfilling Johan's comment, there are cooperations, and what I like about Sweden, that they like cooperations.
Yes,
You
we
like
love
cooperations. We have a retail cooperations, we have producer cooperations, we have different type and mix match. What is, let's say, in Lithuania, it's more I do it myself. I do it myself and for myself, and I keep everything in secret. Here, everybody is working towards one goal.
Some of the examples I like from previous years for ICA is that they did the vertical farms collaboration, then some organic food support.
And
Yeah.
even, for example, with the companies like Volvo Trucks, I mean, who could think that ICA as a food retailer can collaborate with the Volvo Trucks? But the common target is fossil-free transportation in 2030. So we need a partner who will produce it.
Cross-sector food is spreading
Exactly.
everywhere. So what's happening in Vilnius? We have a question.
Audience regarding your professional opinion, and mainly for Johan and Asta. Question is related regarding the food, and especially in Lithuania, it's very popular freeze-drying beers and fruits. And we would like to know your opinion if you see potential to expand and grow this business in Sweden.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that question. You said freeze drying. That wasn't the ghost in my freeze dry. Oh, this is such a lovely question. In Sweden, we don't take care of our berries. We sell them in the raw shape.
You even not picking up them.
We're not even picking them. We're not even picking.
Forest.
No, but I think freeze drying is a wonderful technology. I learned how to cook with freeze dry once by an American astronaut. So like freeze drying is the future for you know, if we're going out to space. And of course, you lock in nutrition for 3 or 4 decades when you freeze dry something. Not many people freeze dry stuff in Sweden. So please send all your freeze dried stuff to us.
But it's already existing in
it
Sweden.
does, right?
You can buy in the store. What I would
you can buy stuff. I just wonder where it comes from because we don't have such an industry.
Yeah, good question. Maybe from Lithuania.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. No, but it's super. So basically, what you could do in Lithuania is, if you foresee, a need for vitamins from berries a couple of decades from now, and prices going up, you can produce them already now and store them and sell them.
And it's very important, and here the product itself is it's great and nutritional and matches all the innovation criteria, let's say. But what we need is customer education. We need to educate our customers what it is, why it is good, and so on and so on. So here as well, producers and distributors, suppliers, they have to do enormous work in educating our customers.
Yep, that's for sure. But that freeze drying is the future, no doubt, I'd say. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.